everyone thinks they know who the most powerful elf in Middle-earth was. They say Galadriel, the Lady of Light, or Elrond, wise Lord of Rivendell. But they're all looking in the wrong age, because the truth lies in fire. In a time when the stars were young and the elves were still new to the world, and it begins with one name whispered with awe and sorrow: Feanor. This is a story about the brightest flame of the elves, the spirit of fire who changed the fate of Middle-earth. Before we continue further, if you could take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel, it would mean the world, and it helps us keep sharing the old tales of Arda with others who love them. Now, let's return to the story. I'm sure you've all heard of him, the craftsman, the rebel, the one whose pride kindled wars that burned across the ages. But today, I don't want to talk about him as a villain or even as a hero. I want to tell you about the flame, the burning heart of the Noldor, and what happens when something burns too bright for the world to hold. They say that when Feanor was born in Valinor, the very air seemed to shimmer. His mother, Miriel, called him Feanaro, spirit of fire. And even the Valar, the powers of the world, could feel that something greater than ordinary life had stirred. His mother poured everything she had into that child, every ounce of spirit, every spark of her being, and when she had given it all, she lay down and never woke again. Feanor was her masterpiece and her undoing. His father, Finwë, loved him deeply, maybe too deeply. He saw in Feanor a light that reminded him of the very dawn of the world. And so the boy grew fierce, proud, restless, a mind always chasing perfection, a spirit always unsatisfied. While others learned from the Valar, Feanor rivaled them. He learned their secrets, then surpassed them. He forged jewels that seemed to breathe, and runes that pulsed with hidden power. He wove light into form, and from that mastery came his greatest work, the Silmarils. 3 jewels, each one capturing the unmarred light of the 2 trees of Valinor, the light before the world was broken, before sorrow, before shadow. When he revealed them, even the Valar marveled. Varda, queen of the stars, blessed them so that no unclean hand could touch them. And Feanor, oh, he glowed with pride. You could see the light of the Silmarils reflected in his eyes. But pride, you see, is a tricky thing. It begins as joy in one's work, but it curdles when fear comes. Fear that what you love will be taken from you. And fear came because Morgoth once called Melkor, the mightiest of the Valar, looked upon the Silmarils and desired them more than anything in Arda. He whispered lies among the elves, twisting truth into envy. And Feanor, who trusted no one but his own flame, began to listen. He accused his half-brothers, Fingolfin and Finarfin, of plotting against him. He turned on the Valar themselves, calling them jailers. And when Morgoth finally struck, when he slew Finwë and stole the Silmarils, Feanor's grief became something the world had never seen before. He stood before his people in the darkened halls of Tirion, and his eyes blazed like twin stars. Be he foe or friend, be he foul or clean, he cried, "Brood of Morgoth, or bright Vala, whoso shall hold the Silmarils shall perish in the flames of our wrath." That was the oath of Feanor, the most terrible vow ever spoken by elf or man. His 7 sons swore it beside him, their voices rising into the night. And in that moment, the doom of the Noldor was sealed. Now, some say that the Valar tried to reason with him, that they begged him to stay, but he was past reason. He called for his people to leave the Blessed Realm, to return to Middle-earth and reclaim the jewels by force. He told them that freedom lay beyond the sea, that they had been kept like children under the watch of their betters, and they believed him. Thousands followed, swept up in his fire, for Feanor could make you believe anything. That was his gift and his curse. But when they reached the shores and found that there were no ships enough to bear them all, Feanor went to the Teleri, the seafaring elves of Alqualand. He demanded their white ships. They refused. The ships were their treasures, gifts of the sea, and they would not give them up for war. And so Feanor took them by force. It was the first kinslaying, elf against elf, brother against brother, blood upon the white decks, blood in the waves. And when the ships were won, he did not wait for the others. He burned them. He burned the ships on the far shore so that none could turn back, not even his own kin. The flames lit the night sky, and that was the last time Valinor saw the light of Feanor's host. Even the Valar wept. When at last he set foot in Middle-earth, he was not the same. His eyes were hard as diamonds, his voice sharp as iron. He led his people into battle against Morgoth, and for a time, victory followed him like a shadow. The Balrogs themselves feared his wrath. His banners shone bright in the darkness, and the Noldor thought perhaps the oath might yet bring them glory. But it was not to be. They say he met his end in fire fittingly. When the hosts of Morgoth fell upon him, he fought like a storm unchained. He slew mighty foes, his spirit blazing so fiercely that even his enemies faltered before him. Yet he was struck down at last, pierced by many wounds. And as he lay dying, his body consumed itself in flame, leaving nothing but ash and legend. His sons gathered the ashes, but there was nothing left to bury. The spirit of fire had burned itself away. Now, you might think that's the end, but it isn't. Not really, because Feanor's oath lived on. His sons kept it, even when it led them to ruin. They hunted the Silmarils across centuries, spilling more blood, breaking more hearts, until none of them remained unscarred. And the Silmarils themselves, they rejected them. Each gem, once pure, became a mirror showing its bearer their true soul. For all their light, they were never meant to be possessed. When I think of Feanor, I don't see a villain. I see a man, or rather, an elf who loved too fiercely. He loved creation so much he couldn't bear imperfection. He loved beauty so deeply that he chained it. And that, I think, is the tragedy of the firstborn. They were made to love the world, but the world cannot be held. You see, Feanor was never evil. He was too alive. Every emotion in him burned at the edge of breaking. His pride was as vast as his genius, his grief as deep as his joy. He was what happens when the divine spark meets mortal will and refuses to bend. There's a kind of beauty in that, isn't there? Terrible, yes, but beautiful. Sometimes I imagine what it would have been like to meet him just once. To see those eyes that caught the light of the Silmarils. To hear him speak, not with the fury of his downfall, but in the quiet of his workshop, shaping light into living crystal. Maybe he would have smiled then, not with arrogance, but with wonder, the way only creators do when they look upon something truly new. And I think maybe for a moment he might have been at peace. Of course, Galadriel endured longer. Lúthien did greater deeds. Elrond healed more wounds, and Celebrimbor learned more caution. But none of them would have been who they were without him. His fire runs through all their stories, a warning and an inheritance. Galadriel herself once said that Feanor's skill was beyond even the Valar's comprehension. Yet she also said that his heart was like a sword drawn too long, bright, sharp, and brittle. When it breaks, it cuts everything around it. So when people ask me who was the most powerful elf in Middle-earth, I tell them it was Feanor. Not because he ruled the greatest realms or wielded the mightiest spells, but because he changed the course of the world with nothing but the strength of his spirit and the fire of his will. His flame burned so fiercely that the very heavens remember it. Every time you read of the Silmarils, or the light of Arendel's star, or the beauty of Galadriel's mirror, you're seeing echoes of Feanor's light, refracted through ages of sorrow and wisdom. He was the first spark, and without that spark, none of the rest, not the rings, not the quests, not even the hope of the West, would have ever come to be. You see, the elves of the First Age lived like stars, brilliant, distant, untouchable. But even stars burn out. And Feanor? He was a supernova. Too bright to endure, too proud to fade, too human, in the end, for his own kind. He was the mightiest of the elves and the most doomed. And in that, I think we find a reflection of ourselves. Because every one of us, in some small way, carries a bit of that fire that need to create, to defy, to make something that lasts. It's dangerous, yes. It can destroy us if we let it. But without it, the world would be dark and still. So let us remember Feanor not as a cautionary tale, but as a testament to the beauty of imperfection, to the cost of creation, and to the light that endures even after the fire has gone out. That is the story of Feanor, Spirit of Fire, the most powerful elf who ever lived.